Warning, the following broadcast is offensive, marginally funny, and contains no educational value whatsoever. It is intended for immature audiences only.
Welcome to another edition of That Riot Show. This is your host, Big Fat John.
And Judo, Larry M.
You ever see a steam pipe when too much pressure builds up in a boiler or something? What happens?
Are you saying that's a pipe over there?
Yeah, that blows off steam.
Relief valve.
The relief valve. Phil's an engineer. He understands. That's a relief valve. Why do you think God gave you a dick? It's to avoid stress, man. He needs a blowjob, but not just any old blowjob.
Isn't that funny? Women cause stress, and then they can relieve it.
There you go.
This is fucked up. Now, work up all your science very quickly. We're going to give you 2 or 3 seconds. Then work it up. Chlamydia.
Yep.
Okay. 1 in 15. They had an abstinence policy, but 1 in 15 chlamydia.
Yep.
Go.
I'll tell you exactly what it is from a scientific standpoint. I'd be happy to. You know what it is? You can't stop teenagers from fucking.
This is fucked up.
I know I'm getting old. This very week, I've sat on my balls twice.
This is fucked up.
Unfortunately, on this visual medium, you have to put up with this. Look at this. See? Larry, feel that.
No.
Oh, you're gay.
This is fucked up.
Hey, Phil, what kind of time we got left? Hold, I can't see it from here. What you got? 10 minutes? Lucky for you folks, there's 10. Whoa, what did you have for dinner? Jesus Christ, that belch.
Jesus Christ.
Oh. Smells like a Mexican's ass. Whoa, what the hell's going on? Oh.
This is fucked up.
All right, welcome back to That Riot Show. This is your host, Big Fat John.
And Judo, Larry.
There you go. Now you get into the swing of things. Last week, for some reason, after years of referring to himself as Judo Larry, this guy tries to pull an independent move by going by just Larry.
Yeah, that wasn't working. So now I'm back to Judo Larry.
There you go. There's a good reason. We call you Judo Larry because of what?
Because I know judo.
Is that it? I thought you just made bagels.
Oh, there.
An oldie but a goodie, but a bump. Anyway, all right. So this is the Riot Show. Thank you for joining us again this week. Hopefully you enjoyed our comeback episode last week after being off the air for over a year, Larry, or just about a year. Working our way back into the new studio here after we had to vacate the premises, according to the landlord. Can you imagine the balls on him, Larry?
Kicking us out
just because the lease was up and he wanted like a heck of a lot more money for us to stay in New York City. Larry, get Bernie Sanders on this ASAP.
Yeah, the millionaire Bernie Sanders. Give us some of your book money, asshole.
Cocksucker. Anyway, all right. So, but anyway, in all seriousness, we've got our new producer, Filipino Phil. He's helping out with the setup, Larry. The cameras, the lights, the action, everything.
The stuff that we don't know.
So last week's show, I think, looked pretty good. What do you think? Looked crisp a little bit?
It looks sharp, but we need to pick it up a little.
We need to pick it up a little, a lot.
When you're off for a year, you know.
You know what else happens after?
Like a football team. You got to sink.
You got no training camp. Yeah, it's hard. You need a couple of preseason games. But you know what disgusted me about the show last week? What? I have to be honest.
Okay.
I looked at myself on camera.
Yes.
Jesus Christ, have I put on a lot of weight.
Yeah, so have I.
And it doesn't help that I show up in like sweatpants and t-shirts.
Well, yeah, but it's a
fact.
Look. But it's a look. You see here it says punk rock libertarians. It's you.
Punk rock pig libertarian. It's horrible.
Yeah, you have to lose some weight and then...
I got to do something. If only my wife would let me have sex with her again, I'd be in good shape. I'd work off a couple of these LBs, Larry. I don't know what's going on.
I got to work off a few too, so don't worry.
Oh, maybe I could have sex with you and work these off.
You could fuck me out.
There you go. Anyway, all right. Enough of the silly banter.
Terrible.
The Riot. Listen, we always try to get what, Larry, out of the way early?
We're going to do all the pimping. We got to get all the platforms out.
That's right. We got to get all the pimping. Phil, do me a favor. As I regale the audience, please do the Scroll O podcasts, and folks can always listen. iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, Podomatic, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, TuneIn. You know, there's just too many to remember. Generally speaking, anywhere you can find a podcast, you'll find The Riot Show. Go there and check it out. You can subscribe, get it every week as soon as it comes off the presses. You could always go to thatriotshow.com, thatriotshow.com. That's home base for all Riot Show information. Go there. You'll check out back episodes. Larry, we have something like, 7-8 years worth of podcasts on that thing, both audio and visual. Go there, check it out. And of course, the other place you want to check us out would be Twitter.
Twitter.
At That Riot Show. Just check the old address as it comes up on the screen. Hit me up there. As Larry has told you on many occasions, Larry, what have you told the people?
If you feel like fighting with somebody about politics, this person will stay up to the wee hours.
And he's talking, of course, about verbal jousting.
Yes, that's of course.
Please don't show up in my house.
What else would it be on Twitter?
Please don't show up in my house with a baseball bat or anything.
Yeah.
I'll be forced to shoot you.
You can do that. I mean, that's,
Second Amendment rights, baby.
Are you a big gun owner, John?
Am I a big gun owner? No.
No, but you do believe in gun rights, though.
Yes, I do believe in gun rights. The same way I believe that you should... Hey, man, black tar heroin for everybody, for all I care.
Yeah.
I couldn't care less, and I've never done a drug in my life.
That's right.
I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do any of that shit.
Drink a little.
Not anymore.
No.
I've given it up. Yeah, not for any particular reason. I just don't find it pleasant anymore. But yeah, Larry's right. I've been pretty much straight edge ever since.
Big fat teetotaler.
Ever since Minor Threat, basically, I've been a straight edge guy. But seriously, I believe in all that shit. I don't care if someone says to me, "Oh, are you for selling heroin to teenagers?" Hey, if they're over 18, if they can buy a cigarette, they can buy heroin, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, if they can vote and fight in a war, you can smoke pot. So do whatever you want.
Opioid crisis? No crisis here. If you can afford it, get it. It's like, I couldn't care less, honestly. I don't see why anybody should tell you how to manage your pain.
Absolutely. I was telling some guy at work, I said, tell me why gambling is illegal.
Oh, don't get me started.
Or prostitution. And he just went, like it's always been like that.
Yeah. You'll either get one of two answers. Because it, especially with the prostitution, Larry.
Yeah.
But typically it's some takeoff on, well, it victimizes people.
Yeah, you're going to
the users are the victims on this.
You're going to ruin your life.
Right. And usually the second takeoff of that is something Jesus / Buddha / Muhammad.
Yeah.
Somebody just doesn't like it, and they, you know, for religious reasons, obviously, they'll say they don't do it. But I just find that non-compelling, Larry.
Yeah. I mean, I've told people prostitution, gambling, all these things, drugs. I mean, you know, it's just make it legal.
Yeah.
Take it out of the hands of criminals and gangs, and and just take it out of the shadows. And
you don't have to make it legal; just decriminalize it.
Okay.
You know, like if you don't want to make it legal in the sense that
I mean,
no, I don't disagree with you, but at least if we got to the point where you're not throwing people in cages over this shit.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Right?
No,
like,
ridiculous.
And anything that's associated, like I've heard people say, Larry, like, oh, if you make weed and heroin and coke legal, you're going to have these guys who are strung out, running, committing robbery and stuff. First of all, that happens whether it's legal or not.
Right.
Step one.
That's already going on.
Yeah. Step two, there's already laws against robbing, stealing, murdering, and all that. You don't need an extra set of laws on top of that to combat that. You know, like it's the same reasoning that you get with prostitution.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, well, you know, if you legalize prostitution, that means how many women are going to be victimized by this? First of all, there's an old libertarian saying, no victim, no crime. You know, it's like, unless I see a dead body or something stolen, it's like there's no crime, really.
No, but there's no crime if you choose to do it.
Exactly.
If you're a consenting adult and you choose to do it, then there's no crime. We're not, you know, they're associating these things with an increase in assault or battery or some rape or something.
Which is not the case.
Which is not the case. No, not at all. It's kind of like what we talked about with the marijuana becoming legal in Colorado. We talked about this on the show years ago, and I told people, I said, here's what's going to happen. When you heard that it was going to be legal, or even idiots from other states are flocking there so they could stand online and be the first people to smoke pot when it was legally in Colorado. Okay, so here's what happens. All right, initially, there's a big spike up. So, because the novelty of it is hilarious to people, especially if you're a person who smokes pot on a regular basis. You can smoke pot out in a park. You don't have to worry about anything. Okay. So now, what has happened since Colorado did this? The numbers of people smoking has gone down, pretty much back to the level it was when it was illegal.
Right.
Plus, a lot of the stores that were selling and had the pot have closed.
Right.
In Colorado. You know why? Because there's no lines out the door anymore. And it's simply like whatever they started, I don't know what they started out with, but if they had like 200 stores, now they're down to like 150 because they don't need as many.
Right. Well,
and the demand is not as much, and the novelty of it and the whole.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah,
it's market forces,
right?
Like any other business, right? Like any other business, like that cronut guy in New York. Where was he? Down in the Village or whatever? The guy who invented cronuts. I forget his name. Some French guy, right?
Yeah.
He invented cronuts. Larry, remember the craze? People made a living waiting online to buy cronuts for rich douchebags on Wall Street.
Right.
Okay? Right?
Yeah, that's true.
Because they were too lazy to stand online. So there were people task-rabbiting this for like $50. I'll go get you a dozen cronuts.
Yeah.
And then when you got in there, that fucking frog would only sell you 2 or 3 at a time. Like, he was limiting his supply. Very smart businessman.
No, that's what I was going to say. That's
right?
smart for him.
Yeah. But what happened? Like any other business, after a year, hey, you don't have something new for me? Guess what? Cronut sales went down. Nobody's killing themselves over it anymore. Nobody's paying other people to stay online. Trust me, the market, the free market, is much smarter than any number of people you can pick out.
It's smarter than the government.
It's smarter than the government. That goes without saying. But then again, like I think my shoe is smarter than the government. But I mean, the free market is the collective wisdom of the crowd, Larry.
Yeah.
And if you haven't read the book, The Wisdom of the Crowd, I highly recommend it. Go read that. How, without knowing how to do something, a crowd of people typically find the right answer. It's very rare that the crowd is wrong and individuals are right. Very rare. And this book chronicles examples of that. So I would recommend that, Wisdom of the Crowd. But that's how free markets are able to do stuff, Larry.
Right, and there are other benefits
to
these type of, in case you think it's good, because I've heard people tell me, well, if we legalize all these things or decriminalize, it's the Wild West. It's going to be crazy. And I said, first off, that is not true.
Right.
I'm not going to go through the whole list here. The other benefits of it, I like to point this out to people who didn't realize this. When Colorado legalized at the time, they were spending $150 as a state. Right. They were spending something like $150 million a year on arresting, incarcerating, prosecuting, all the enforcement of it, right? And it was in the hands of criminals. Right. Now they've legalized it. The criminals aren't making any money off pot. Maybe some of them still are, but they're not making any money off sales because you can just walk in and buy it, and the money that is being saved on not arresting, prosecuting, having to work the system, incarcerating people. So that money is now a savings for the state. The $150 million, I think that's what it was the first year. Right. That's a savings. Then the money they've made off the pot, that's all on the plus side. So you're not only not wasting money going after people for smoking joints and a dime bag, okay, now you're also making a profit, or you're getting some money. Well, tax out of it. It's but I mean, the idea of that. If you legalize, everyone's going to start using heroin, or it doesn't.
First of all, for some people, there might be a gateway activity, right? But it's no different than smoking cigarettes. Has anyone ever considered that? The gateway effect of cigarettes on drugs? Yeah. How many kids start out by smoking cigarettes or cigars before they move on to pot and whatever else? But at the end of the day, I am not against, say, warnings, like the Surgeon General says pot smoking fucks you up or whatever,
Sure.
That's fine.
Sure, stipulate on the thing like they do with cigarettes.
And let people make up their minds, all right? There's a difference between that and saying it's not off. But anyway, so that's how we stand on that. But anyway, same thing with prostitution, right? Yeah. Look, would I want my daughter being a street hoe? No. But then again, I wouldn't want my daughter working on the Sanders campaign, right? People get to make choices in life. So if a woman, sometimes life is hard, Larry. It's harsh. And maybe sometimes the only way you can make money to pull yourself out of a hole is by doing sex work.
Yeah, and whether it's, I would say it's unfortunate, but whatever your take is on it, and sex work is the number one
profession.
No, but it's the biggest moneymaker for women.
Yes.
They've done, you can find this out easily. Women who work as strippers, women who work as hookers, they make more in like a couple of days than you do in a traditional job of just working. I mean, they can make thousands in a day or a night, and I realize it can be dehumanizing and awful, and some of the men are horrible to them. But you have to realize that when you're talking about consenting adults, and you're talking about you live in a free society, you should be allowed to do these things and make these choices. Yeah. And it should not be made for you by the government. And it's, you know, it's that old line from the Godfather, where Don Corleone goes, the only problem with drugs, he goes, is things that are prevented from people because of the government and the church. Right. Like telling you don't do it. He makes a line, he makes a comment to that extent. It's kind of like that. So, you know, my view of it is like what you say. That you decriminalize, you just legalize these things. Things will not, I don't think they're going to get out of control. There's anecdotal information. They've done this a little bit in Europe. Right. Some of the countries have legalized it, and things have actually, the numbers have actually gone down. And you know, people taking them, right. And I know they had that in Spain and Netherlands. Maybe.
Well, even if you look at Nevada here, you know, the one or two cities where it is legal prostitution, it's not like they have a crime wave or, you know. Yeah. But anyway, so that's what we have to say. That, you know, believe it or not, folks, that little thing was not on our list of topics for tonight. We just
part of libertarians is not that the organized.
Yes. To telling me what to do.
Yeah, so we'll start off with that.
Yeah, but let's move on to some topics of the week. Yes. So the first thing I want to talk about, Larry, is interestingly enough, the Supreme Court in the last couple of weeks of this term has heard 4 death penalty cases. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting that how they broke, because they didn't always break the way you might have expected. So there were 4 of them, and pardon me while I read this. It says, there was an inmate in Alabama this week, Christopher Lee Price, who had requested a stay of execution. Now, this guy and a partner had broken in and I believe had stabbed a minister, I believe, with a sword and knife. Like, they were guilty of the crime. Has had his death sentence stayed, I think, 3 times in the past. So this week, again, at the 11th hour, tried to stay his execution. Supreme Court heard the case. He was trying to stay the execution on the grounds that he had requested that he be executed by lethal gas, not lethal injection.
Right, he said the lethal injection would cause him a lot of pain and suffering.
The court ruled on this very narrowly, 5-4, that Christopher Lee Price can basically go fuck himself. They said, you filed your petition too late. You've had years to decide how you want it to be executed. You can't change it at the last second. And apparently Alabama had issues getting the gas or something like that. So they ruled against him. Now, just because of a formality, the state has to reapply to execute him. Like the expiration date on the execution went by. Mm-hmm. So it might take another couple of weeks before they execute him, but the guy lost his case. This was on the heels in February of another court decision that allowed, again, by a 5-4 decision, the execution of Dominique Ray, who claimed that her religious rights were being violated because there wasn't either a Buddhist, there wasn't an imam that was allowed to be in the death chamber with her. Because the state of, which one was it, Larry? Here, can you see my eyesight without my glasses is horrible. I think it was in Alabama again.
Yes.
That their laws were that only prison employees could be in the death chamber, specifically with the condemned, and that they didn't have any imams on the payroll, only Christian ministers. So Dominique had requested that a stay because she wanted an imam. They ruled against her again, 5-4, breaking along ideological lines on the court. But then in a different case in Texas, where a condemned inmate had requested a Buddhist religious person to be in the death chamber with them, they did grant his stay until one could be found.
Okay.
And gotten for him. So he's gonna fry or whatever, but they're just giving him a chance. And then there was another case they had a rule on, which was that the inmate claimed again that the lethal injection cocktail would be cruel and unusual punishment and very painful for him specifically because of a rare disorder that the inmate had. I don't remember his name right now.
I was going to ask you if they were citing the
but in that case, the court ruled for the inmate. Like they said, okay, now they have to figure out a different way to kill him. So in all these cases, all 4 inmates the executions will still go through. But Larry, my question to you is, A, what's your opinion on the death penalty? Not just as as a libertarian or conservatarian, whatever we want to call ourselves here. And B, how do you feel the country feels about the death penalty? Like, I don't remember the Supreme Court having to handle this many in a long, long time. This many. They usually have one big high-profile case that they'll rule on. Right. But this is like 4 of them in a very short time, in one term. So what do you think?
It's very unusual that they would have that many all at the same time. I'm not surprised that they broke down along ideological lines.
Of course.
I always used to support the death penalty because I always used to rationalize that there are some crimes that are so horrible that society has the right to say that's too much.
Revenge. Basically.
And but I look at it as appropriate punishment. I really do. I remember when that guy Burns, the black guy in Texas, was dragged behind his truck, behind the truck by the 3 white supremacists who had just gotten out of jail in Texas.
Horrible.
And they dragged him
for a mile.
He was a black guy. They dragged him by they
tied him up
and the back of the pickup truck, and they dragged him for like a mile or so. And the police found like one of his arms over there, and it was really awful. And I'm saying to myself, like, why do these guys get to live after this at the cost of the taxpayers? You know, you're sending them back to jail where like some of their friends are, and they get to be in like some stupid gang and hang out and pump iron all day. Right. And it is partly revenge. Right. There is a sense of you want to get back at these people for what they've done. Right. And I actually consider that a normal human reaction. Sure. I'm not reading into that it shows you're like angry or it doesn't have to be somebody that I know personally. Right. For me to feel that is really just awful. Right. And I remember seeing his family on the news. I was like, that's got to be like unbelievable. It's a bit, we've all seen you watch like shows and the cops have to come to the door and like, we're very sorry. Yeah. Like someone's like, imagine having to hear this. Oh, well, yeah. And look at the reason that they're doing it for. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you hear stories. John and I covered on the old show about a guy who got into a fight outside a bar. Right. And somebody punched him and I killed him, or something like the fights break out and like things happen. But this is just awful. This black guy is just walking down the road. Right. And they were just like, hey, let's attack him. For the worst reason in the world. So I look at examples like that and I've always said to myself, and George Bush was the governor. Right. Actually, at the time that happened, and they went. I think they all went to the chair, and I said to myself, that makes sense. That works for me. My concern with it, like most people, is that you have people on death row who are innocent. It's a tiny percentage of people. Right. We're not going to exaggerate, but there are people who have made their way, and this is the genius now of DNA that has come out. We've found out that rapes and things that have happened, and if you watch like Dateline and some of these shows like I do, you see these people getting released. Yeah. Because after like 20 years, they found out like, it wasn't this guy, and they found this guy, and he's been living in Florida, and they went and arrested him, and like all they do really is they let you go, they apologize, and they give you some money or whatever, but so I always I am mindful of the fact that there are people who could be facing this punishment, and they shouldn't even have been in jail in the first place. And that's a toughie, because they're not all as clear as the example I gave of those 3 assholes who killed the black guy just because he's black. Right. That's easy. Right. I mean, unless you're a white nationalist who enjoys something like that and you're fucked up, that's an easy call. Right. So my concern is the people who are potentially innocent. And as I've gotten older, and now you've heard about the DNA and these things. Now, I've actually moved more and more against it now. Right. But I do think that if you get life, you should get life. I'm not big on parole. I'm not getting out on good behavior, which strikes me as odd. Yeah. Those kind of things. Like if you did this, put you in jail, stay there until you die. Right. And that works for me. So I have to say, I'm getting older. I'm actually a little more against it.
It's interesting. I also used to think that the death penalty. We should have a death penalty. I always used to use the line, people used to say, it's not a deterrent, and, the studies show people aren't put off by the death penalty, they'll still commit a crime. And I always said I couldn't care less because studies have shown 100% of people executed never commit another crime again. So, but I have to admit, like, much like Larry, as I've gotten older, I won't say that I've moved away from the death penalty. I just say that I don't know that if it's, and it's going to sound weird, I don't know if it's worth my effort to get upset about it. Because 99.9% of these people are pieces of shit.
Yeah.
So, and I understand that much like freedom of speech, much like, our rights that are unlimited and have no restrictions on them, like we've said, the First Amendment, free speech, right? Should have no restrictions. Same thing, I think, on this, But, much like Larry, I would rather see, say, life. I would even say life at hard labor if that's something that is still done these days. I don't even know.
Yeah.
Like he said, no possibility of parole for capital offenses, right? So that, if it's actually something we as a society want, I'm okay with it. Then again, if someone said, like, okay, this guy who put a sword through the heart of a minister just because he felt like it, admitted to it, am I concerned that he's being executed? Not at all.
No.
There is a concern as a libertarian about giving the state the authority to take someone's life. That is concerning to me. But like I said, it's one of those situations and I know it sounds weird because it's, you're talking about life and death. I really don't know that I'm going to get worked up about it one way or another.
No, that's my other thing, and you nailed it. I don't worry too much about like some of the people who I've seen. Like sometimes you turn on the news and you're like in Texas today, so and so got killed, and and they'll say like he killed like a family,
right?
That was home,
right? Like a home invasion.
Like a home invasion just because he's a fucking asshole. He's on drugs,
right?
Or he went and robbed them. And I'm sitting there saying, I can't worry about this guy. A family's dead.
Yeah.
But there are concerns about the state, about the innocent.
Right.
And I have to admit, it nags at me.
It does.
Even if I'm nailing it 99% of the time, it concerns me because of like, I mentioned daylight. I watch shows like that. I take on watch because to me they're real stories. First off,
right.
You're not watching a movie; it's not made up, and it fascinates me. First off, the way they catch these people.
Sure,
but now it's now you really have a sense of they can nail these things down with DNA.
Right.
It's cause for concern.
No, I agree with you. So that's an interesting conversation. Again, if you guys have comments on it, please hit us up on Twitter at That Riot Show. Let us know what you think about that topic. It really is one of those interesting ones. There's definitely the people on either side of the equation who are very, very adamant about it.
Oh yeah, the people who are against it are
really against it, and then you have obviously the victims' rights groups that are like, hey, we just have the right to, in essence, get justice, seek revenge. So it's an interesting call. All right, Larry, let's move on to the next topic. Again, going from one difficult call on death penalty to another one. Julian Assange was denied asylum by Ecuador, and they took him out of the embassy, and as soon as he set foot on British soil, he was arrested. Now, he was arrested on two charges. One is originating from the UK, which was failure to show up on a subpoena, basically. Basically, he failed to show up in London on the rape beef that Sweden had filed on him.
Yeah, 2 women in Sweden.
Right.
Accused him of rape, or what, you ready for this? What the Swedish call sex by surprise.
That's quite a surprise!
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Hey, you're being attacked by some asshole. Yeah. Surprise! That's terrible, but that's what they call it.
Somehow I just got this mental image of a guy with a hard on jumping out from behind a curtain or something like, surprise! Bend over, honey. Swedish bikini team. But so basically he got accused of rape. A lot of people said it was bullshit, but whatever. The British authorities had a bond out, the equivalent of subpoena. He failed to show up when he took asylum with the Ecuadorian embassy.
Right.
But now what's interesting on the British side of things, the case in Sweden has been completely dropped. So odds are that you're not going to put Assange in jail for skipping out on a subpoena where the underlying case got dismissed already.
Right.
So he'll probably skate on that. the interesting part is that he's also being held on request of the United States to be extradited back to this country to face charges. Now, again, what makes this interesting, and we'll get into whether or not, is he is being charged with one count of attempting to, in essence, break into a secure computer system. Okay. It's got a different title, the law, but that's essentially what he did.
Well, he started out as a hacker.
Yeah, but basically the U.S. charges that he attempted to enter into a classified computer system using the passwords that other guy, Chelsea Manning, gave him. That he, when he took all those documents.
He did the document dump.
Right.
Military.
So that's what he faces in the U.S. So, Larry, two questions. One, is this a politically motivated extradition, and by whom, to get Assange into this country? And B, what's your general position on Assange?
My general position on him is it's impossible for me to really put it together.
So you know what? Answer the first part. Just on the charges. Politically motivated or what?
They're absolutely politically motivated.
By who?
By the government, the United States government. They're
Do you think it's partisan? Democrats, Republicans?
My guess would be Republicans have more of a hard on to get him than Democrats.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm sure the Democrats see him as a bit of a hero.
Even though WikiLeaks was responsible for all that shit coming out on Clinton during the campaign.
Yeah, but he also dumped a lot of stuff on the military and spies and things like that, and Republicans lost their mind.
But it was out during
conservatives. Yeah, but conservatives like Hannity and Rush, they all lost their mind because he said they put a lot of innocent people's lives at risk.
Right.
And they were very angry with him. So as far as the Democrats are, I'm sure people like Bernie and Beto, they see him as a hero. Like, because they like the whistleblower thing.
Understood.
On the left wing. They love things like that. Like I look at it this way. I don't consider him really a journalist. I don't.
Okay.
I consider him more of just like a asshole hacker. Okay. And I think he likes the anarchy of it.
Fair enough.
And the difference is a journalist will report something, but usually they'll vet their information. They take certain things into consideration. It seems to me that he did this somewhat recklessly. He just got it and just dumped it. He just went like that. And I think he did. And I don't know how many people's lives he may have put at risk or he compromised some operations. I don't know, but I do know that I don't consider him really a journalist, but I'm not like angry with him that I think he belongs in jail. Excuse me, if he raped women, he does. But
those charges have been dropped.
No, I know, but if he did it, it's excuse me. So
it's okay, but you know what's interesting about Assange is I also have mixed feelings on him. Like Chelsea Manning, what that guy did is completely something he should be in jail over because Manning, serving in the role he did, had an agreement, an understanding to not, it's like when you become a soldier or a spy for the CIA, you're not allowed to blab.
No.
Right? That's part of the agreement you made when you joined those organizations. So Manning is a person in a different sort of situation. Assange, on the other hand, is being given information that he chooses to disseminate or not.
Right.
So to me, I don't know. Again, I'm like you. I don't know how to feel about this guy. On the one hand, there is a need for secrecy in some government operations. I don't like it, but there is that need. Need to take a break there?
Yeah.
All right, so why don't we take a 5-minute break? It looks like Larry's about to choke harder than when he does on my cock. So why don't we take 5 minutes and we'll be right back.
Hey, everybody. While Judo Larry M is off to take care of his coughing jag, let me take this opportunity to remind you that Net News, the outstanding new comedy series, is available on Amazon Prime Video. That's right. If you're a subscriber to Amazon Prime, you can watch Season 1, all 6 episodes of Net News for free. Net News has gotten some outstanding ratings on both Amazon and IMDb.com, so if you don't mind, give it a try. Check out Net News today on Amazon Prime Video, and if you like it, leave a positive review, and if you don't, keep it to yourself. All right, I think we see Judo Larry M settling back in his seat, so for right now, let's get back to the riot.
All right, we're back. And Larry, I know a lot of people are going to say, what happened during that break? Was it really because you were choking? Well, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. On my dick.
Oh my God. It was the government trying to shut us down and shut us up.
Man, that would have been a better joke.
Yeah. Much better than your sausage.
I always go straight to the gay humor, folks. Why? Because gay is always funny.
That's right. And the fact is, it wasn't for gay.
Anyway, all right.
So go ahead.
You feeling better?
Yeah, I'm much better.
You got whatever
now
tickles?
I'm judo coffee. Go ahead.
All right. So moving on, we were talking about Assange. And basically, what I was saying is Assange probably mirrors most people's situations in life, Larry. He's not 100% good. He's not 100% evil. He's a man. He's somewhere in between. On the one hand, you got to respect the fact that he really shined a light on a lot of dirty activity that our government and other governments are involved in. Quite honestly,
yes.
Like all those things about the war in Afghanistan, and it's really parallel almost to the Pentagon Papers that came out during the right after the Vietnam conflict that helped. So, in that sense, yeah. On the other hand, he doesn't seem to give a shit if he exposes field operatives that end up getting killed or captured or tortured.
Well, that's what I was talking about before with the reckless nature of it. Just, I understand, there's a part of me, like freedom of information, put it out there, let the chips fall where they may kind of, I want to know.
Right.
But again, even like you were saying earlier, look, there's a reason why some things have to be clandestine and, you don't want to get people killed.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, again, I mentioned her last week because I think she's an interesting character, but Tulsi Gabbard, who's running for president on the Democratic side, actually came out very forcefully in favor of Assange on the basis of free speech, and that if we arrest him and throw him into jail, what does that mean for freedom of the press? What does it mean for the ability of, quote, real journalists, whoever you think they may be, to actually pursue the tough stories, Larry, to really dig into the horse shit that the government really puts out there.
Right.
Like, it really, much like anything, if you take away basic rights, basic protections, people are going to stop doing that service, right? So,
because there's enough risks as it is,
right?
A whistleblower,
right, exactly,
and putting the truth out there,
right,
at your own risk. I mean, not just like financial risk, personal risk, and
so in that sense, I give Gabbard a lot of credit, especially from the Democratic side. Now, I know you said you weren't sure if Democrats liked or hated Assange. I know it flip flops, right?
I think they like it.
There's a lot of Democrats, especially the older ones, that can't stand him because of what he did to Clinton, what they perceived that he did to Clinton. And even Trump, during the campaign, he was quoted many times saying, I love WikiLeaks.
Did he really?
Yeah, I love WikiLeaks because he was getting the information on the Clinton emails and how, the whole thing about how they were screwing Bernie over. That was basically from WikiLeaks, right? And now Trump is saying, I don't know anything about WikiLeaks. And it's really amazing that he lies within the span of a year or so. It's on tape. And yet nobody seems to care, especially his supporters.
Yeah, his supporters are all in.
Right.
Even the assholes at CNN and MSNBC, they have actually done montages of just Trump lies, like clear things that are just not true.
Yeah.
Like, when he said, like, in the caravan, if you go in the middle of the caravan, there are all these terrorists and people hiding out. And, like, then, it turned out to be, like, maybe two guys who are assholes or MS-13 guys. But the point is, it is amazing how he lies, like, unbelievable. But, there's no feeling sorry for Bill Clinton, for me. You remember
for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, for any of them, any of the Clintons. Look, anything that Assange dumped on them is probably true.
No, listen, the thing with Assange, though, seriously, is that none of the shit that he's leaked has been proven false.
No.
It's all good stuff.
Yeah.
In that sense, he's a good journalist because the stuff he has leaked is authentic.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm not questioning that.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the dangerous nature of it, the outing people.
Well, what was interesting was initially he tried to be responsible. So, for example, when he started leaking the Manning stuff, I believe it was the Manning stuff, he gave it to just 4 or 5 news outlets. I think the Times, the Guardian, Der Spiegel, and Le Monde, I think.
Le Monde.
Where, he gave them to different countries and everything. And some of those papers had a dilemma. Do we run it as is, or do we redact stuff? Like the New York Times redacted a lot of names and things, things that they thought would put people in danger. But eventually, so in the beginning, I think Assange worked with them to kind of make sure, like, okay, I'm not getting anybody killed or anything. But then I think he got the impression that he was being fucked over. Like they're tools of the government. So that's when he decided, like, here it is, just take everything and do what you want with it. So whether he was right or not, I don't know. And again, I still don't know whether I like this guy or not in terms of what he's doing. But I will say one thing.
It's complicated.
It's complicated. But there's no doubt in my mind that this is politically motivated. Yeah. And if you look at it, one single charge, and it's not even an indictment for a crime. It's an indictment for an attempt of a crime. And if you know any district attorneys out there or anything, go ask them. What are the odds of you getting an indictment and winning on an attempted crime that isn't murder? Yeah. It's like about this much. Yeah. The whole point is to get him on U.S. soil, in my opinion, and really fuck with him once he's here. Yeah. Whether it's hold him indefinitely, whether it's getting the CIA to work him over, whatever. I think and I don't think I'm being paranoid. I think that's the ultimate goal, is to get him on U.S. soil.
Oh yeah, they want to get him here. They want to prosecute him. They want to stick it to him. There's no doubt. They felt like what he did was wrong. Right. They felt like, well, they really embarrassed us. And he's been hiding out in the stupid embassy for the past couple of years. Of course, I have to point this out. Vox, that site, they put on their site today, it says, Julian Assange kicked out of the Ecuadorian for food and poop. It just said that. Apparently, I just breezed over. Apparently, he's a Oscar Madison, disgusting type of person. But it's going to be very interesting, especially now that he looks like David Letterman with the long beard. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens here. 'Cause like you said, charges in Sweden dropped. That's done. Okay, the stuff in England, probably. I'm thinking that at some point that's going to, and then he's going to get extradited here. And
I was reading something. I didn't get to read the whole story, but I saw an article titled, like, "Is the statute of limitations up on the charge that they laid on him?" They're not even sure if that's up or not. So we'll see, but it's interesting. All right, moving on to the next topic, Larry.
Sure.
This one makes me chuckle, because remember, we're not going to focus on Trump. It doesn't mean that we won't occasionally throw out something about him. So, file this under what an asshole. But Larry, Trump, now it's come out that his major plan for dealing with Democrats who don't agree with him on building a stupid wall, he plans on shipping every illegal alien he can find in this country to sanctuary cities. Particularly Pelosi's district. And by the way,
a lot of them are in California anyway.
Yeah. No, there's actually sanctuary cities I read all around the country.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like New York is
one.
One, right? But here's the funny part. Like, this isn't conjecture on our part. Conjecture, I should say, on our part. It's not, we think he's going to be an asshole and do this. No, ladies and gentlemen. He tweeted it out. Like, whatever her district is, what is it, San Francisco and something else? Yeah. He said, they are headed there. We are dumping everyone we catch in Pelosi's backyard. All right? And it turns out it's the reason Christian
Nielsen.
Nielsen, the head of
Homeland Security resigned.
That's one of the reasons she resigned. Because apparently he's been asking for this for months.
Yeah.
Like, and everybody in the Trump administration was like, yo, man, cool it. Come on. Even if they are sanctuary cities, you can't dump, like, 6 million illegal aliens in San Francisco. Like, even, like, sanctuary cities, you know what their policy is, basically? If you catch someone who's an illegal alien who isn't a fucking murderer, right, they'll say, like, look, we don't care if he's here. They'll say to the feds, we don't care if he's here. Let him work, whatever, right? Whether you agree with that or not, certainly the intent of a sanctuary is not to house millions of these people at a given time, right? It's just meant for a handful of people that there's a dispute over. No, ladies and gentlemen. Trump plans on putting half of Mexico and airlifting them and dropping them into the middle of Pelosi's office.
Au
contraire.
That's not what sanctuary cities are for. Apparently, they're for taking everybody who's here without papers.
Yeah.
You
don't understand.
Like the president.
Yeah, that's it. Like,
it just kills me. If this guy's the president, this is like something I expect my brother to do.
Yeah.
Like if he was pissed at something, like, you know what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
I'm going to take all the mess from my room.
Yeah.
And I put it in your room. Neat freak. Like, you know,
listen. If Larry, Phil, or myself came up with this idea, we'd get a good laugh out of it. Hell, I'd get a good laugh out of it.
I'm having a good laugh out of it. It's
real. And right now, it's real. Okay? We're getting a good laugh out of this. But stop and imagine that this is the brainchild of the President of the United States. No shit, seriously.
Yeah.
Again, we've said this all along. The guy has the mentality of a 5-year-old. You know what I mean? Like when a 5-year-old, you tell him not to do something, right? And what does the 5-year-old do? Anybody who's a parent here, the 5-year-old immediately goes to like the dumbass extrapolation of your rule. Like, listen, you can't eat ice cream before your dinner. You know, like if you give them that rule, and they catch you having an ice cream at 4 o'clock as an adult, they'll be like, oh, where's your dinner? When did you eat dinner? You know, like, because that's the way a 5-year-old thinks, right?
No, but it's the idea that his way of dealing with people is, if you, no, it's childish in the sense that, you know how kids don't like to hear no?
Yeah.
Well, I want to go visit my friends. Like, no! I want to have chicken and steak for dinner. No! Like, whatever no is, I want $10 more in my allowance. No! Like, their reaction, you know, is to do something back to opposite. Or like, Pelosi went out of her way, and she did, to make sure that he didn't get any border wall funding, right? Then he had the government shutdown. Then he had to give in, which don't think that didn't drive him up the fucking wall, for God's sake.
Then he wants to shut down the border entirely.
Right. Then he starts diverting funds from military projects that they need to build shit so he can get money for his stupid wall. Then the other day I saw him down there and he's like, see this wall here? It's flat, very difficult to climb over. Like he's
very smooth.
Analyzing like walls. And meanwhile, because of the way Schumer and Pelosi really stuck it, and they did. They showed him up. They wouldn't give him any money. They gave him like...
Which, by the way, they stuck it to him, but that's really just politics.
Yeah, I understand that, but they went out of their way to do it.
Yes.
I mean, this is a party that Hillary Clinton said she voted for money for a border wall or Barry. Okay, Barack Obama very famously said, don't just show up at the border and try to get into the country because you won't get into the country. The Democrats have been fine with border walls and security. And it's just because this asshole wants it. They don't. So they went out of their way. She went out of their way to stop it. So what cracks me up about it is the fact that the moment that he lost, and that's how you have to refer to it, he started coming up with, in his mind, how to come up with ways to get back at it. So this is going to be it now. So you guys, like, think about it. You won't give me money for my wall? Oh, yeah? Guess what? I'm going to take all these caravan assholes, right? Yeah. And I'm going to put them right in your living room. What the fuck?
And it's hilarious to me because basically his entire administration is telling him to please not do this.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't care. It's like he nominated Herman Cain to be on the Federal Reserve Board. This is the guy who had his whole presidential campaign was based around fried chicken. And if you think that's a racist comment, it's not. The guy was a fried chicken magnate, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Like he just had a string of fried chicken stores. And this guy was running for president. What was it, his 999 tax plan?
Yeah, the 999 tax plan.
And then somebody pointed out the math didn't work out, and he went, well, yeah, it's a concept. It's like, you know,
we're spitballing here.
They nominated that guy to be on the Federal Reserve Board of Directors, okay? And what's interesting is, from what I've read, everybody, including Mitch McConnell, said, please don't make us vote on this guy.
Yeah.
But the essential problem is, even though Trump is this asshole that we've just described, childish, petty, you know, like he'd rather get revenge than do the right thing, yeah. Larry, it's really amazing to me how Republicans fall in line behind him. Like, why don't they vote against Herman Cain? Why don't they tell him, like, we're not going to support this stupid thing of migrant? First of all, Think of the logistics of migrating all these illegal aliens to Pelosi's office.
That's true.
What are you going to do? You're gonna airdrop them?
You know what he's going to do?
Put them in the truck and drive them?
I'm going to tell you right now, he's going to have ice. That when they pick them up and they arrest them,
just drive.
Find an alley or a lot and let them out.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I'm not kidding. He'll do it. The one thing I do believe about Trump is if he says so, even if it's the stupidest thing, he will do it.
Yeah.
I mean, he will take risks because he doesn't care. That's the difference. Like when he moved the U.S. Embassy from Jerusalem to wherever, and everyone's like, don't do it, it'll set off a fire. Yeah. He went and did it. He really doesn't care. And at this point, the wall was his big campaign. It started, he said, about the Mexicans with the rapists and he came down the escalator with Melania. Right. And from that day, if you go back and watch our show, and this goes back, that's 2014. Yeah, Can you imagine? Yeah. 2 years before.
Right.
We were already blasting him. It's like, this is the stupidest thing in the world. Right. And let me tell you something. He's going to get that wall or most of it or something. He has to.
I don't know. It's interesting because I think he realizes that outside of his base, which maybe he cares about, maybe he doesn't, really there's no support for a wall. And
no, there's not.
Despite what he told you about big victory in the midterm elections, like what he was talking about, like the Republicans, they held on to the Senate by the skin of their scrotum. But that was about it. The House completely flipped on him. Yeah. And by the way, I know he said the House doesn't count, it's only the Senate that counts, or whatever the fuck he was saying. He hates the House because the House has subpoena power. They're getting his tax returns. Listen, whether he likes it or not, it looks like they're going to get his tax returns that they were never going to get before with the Republican House. So there's a lot of shit going on here so I think he does care. Whether he cares enough to get it, it may be a 2021 thing if he wins re-election. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he
wants... But he's got to get something. So he can at least say to his base and his supporters, look, we have this, and you've seen the way Pelosi and Schumer, but he's going to dump that on them.
Well, look.
But this is his campaign.
I don't think they care anymore, and I'll tell you why.
The economy's doing very well. The Dow was up like another 250 today. They don't care about that.
As I know about rubes, because they constantly hit me up on Facebook in support of Trump.
So they actually use Facebook?
Yeah. And what's happening is that a lot of them, one of them challenged me, and he said, listen, change the name Trump to anything you want, John. Wouldn't you admit that he's had a successful presidency? And I said, no. What makes you... first of all, they said, well, the economy's doing well.
Well,
yeah, because he drove the deficit through the roof. Anybody can boost the economy to 4% if you give me trillions of dollars to spend from Washington on infrastructure projects and shit.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, most economists will tell you that the economy should be growing at 7% with all the money he's spending, not 4%. Do you know why it's only at 4%? Because anything he does that's good in this country in that sense, from a Keynesian perspective, he flushes it down the toilet when he sets up trade tariffs with every other country in the world. China, Mexico. Now you want no more avocados, everyone, because Trump is upset. Okay? You have to understand, nothing good has come of this, right? For all his shit that he talked about Kim Jong-un getting North Vietnam in line. North Korea, sorry. Whatever, they all look alike. Go ahead. Send me the complaints. I can see it already. It's a joke. But anyway, my point being is, for all his shit about getting those guys in line, he's done nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
He's just had a few meetings.
Yeah, where he went and praised them. That was it. He went and praised them, and fuck it. That was it.
Love Kim Jong-un.
Yeah.
Special guy.
Very good, strong army. But whatever. He's managed to piss everyone off. Everyone. Like, every ally he ever had fucking hates Trump with a passion. So, the point is, even if you took the name away, it just said President X, these are his accomplishments so far. At best, it's mediocre. At best.
Yeah.
At best. So, and with a different president, you wouldn't have to put up with the shit of him being a vulgarian on top of it. Right? So please, he hasn't done that well. So I'm thinking that he really doesn't want to piss off even more people before 2020. I think it's dead. The wall is dead. I think it's more politically advantageous for him to bitch about the wall.
Oh, okay.
than to actually build. Like if Pelosi all of a sudden said, "Please stop sending all these Mexicans to San Francisco," I give up. I can't take it anymore. I don't want any of these fucking Mexicans in San Francisco.
They want to go over to my house.
I don't have enough gardening jobs for them. Whatever. Like, let's say she capitulates the next day and they actually give him money for the wall. I think it would be counter to what he wants. Because think about it, it takes forever to build the wall.
No, I know, it's 1,800 miles or whatever the fuck it is. But if they actually give in, then he gets to go to his base and go, I won. Like, he gets to have a rally, and they'll all be there and go, my strategy worked. They tried the strong arm.
To his base.
But that's all he's
But that's what I'm trying to get at.
He's got them, and then he just needs a small amount of people to say, I can't vote for Elizabeth Warren. I can't vote for
Right, but it's not going to be like that this year, because I think what's happening is he's lost the moderate Republicans. I don't think moderate Republicans, if they exist anymore, like all those guys who were McCain people for the sake of argument, they're not putting up with Trump at all.
No, they're not. But if their choice is Kamala Harris or Bernie Sanders or one of the Klobuchar, these idiots,
think of the people on the Democratic side, and this is why I think it makes a big difference who they elect. Biden is the nominee. Trump has a shot at losing.
But they're trying to get rid of him right now.
I understand. I'm saying, though, it's early. It's early. Don't forget.
Yeah, but
at this stage,
they're going to have more people than the Republicans did.
I understand. But at this stage, if you look at the Republican clown car in 2016, this early, who thought Trump had a chance? I mean, they were talking about Jeb Bush. They were talking about Ted Cruz. They were talking about Rubio, right? Likewise, on the Democratic side this time, do we really think, as much as I like her, is Tulsi Gabbard going to make any headway? Probably not.
No.
Is Kamala Harris going to make any headway? No. Kristen Gillibrand, she had a town hall on CNN. I think it was 534,000 people tuned in.
Yeah.
Nothing.
And she's had 2 rollouts for her president, and nobody cared.
She's dead in the water. Now, she makes a good vice president for someone because she carries New York, right? But she's not presidential material. So really, who are you left with? You're left with Biden if he can stop feeling up chicks' asses and tits every time he runs into them. Like, I think he's someone a lot of people can get behind. Beto O'Rourke, I view as a loser. But on the same level, he does raise a lot of money. Even though he lost to Cruz, he had a lot of out-of-state contributions.
Oh, yeah. He got a lot of money the first week he was in.
Right. So that is a very powerful thing for someone who's running.
They're trying to push down. They keep calling him Mayor Pete. Beetlejuice.
It almost sounds like butt plug, like his last name.
I've been calling him Beetlejuice.
And that guy's running about 3rd in the polls right now. So he has a shot because even though he's a Democrat, again, he talks very common sense to a lot of people, which for Democrats is refreshing, believe it or not. Not too many Democrats are talking, right? And then, of course, you've got Bernie, who probably at this stage is the number 1 person right now. Bernie, of course, probably won't win for president for one simple reason. He's too old. Forget his politics for the moment. How old is he? 74, 75? And like he's between me and Methuselah.
It's 78.
He might be old.
He's up there.
Like, it would be very hard to convince the people, even the ones that supported his democratic socialism, that he's presidential. But anyway, so that's why I think Trump is better off bitching about the wall and bitching about Democrats being obstructionist rather than get the wall, especially earlier, and then see all that done.
For the political maneuvering, it's better just to have it to complain about. Because it motivates his people.
Yes.
And he gets to go out and say, look, I'm trying to get the wall.
And they're not helping.
And they're doing everything they can to stop me.
Right.
And then the Democrats are going to go, I thought you said Mexico was going to pay for it.
Yeah.
And then he's going to say, well, that's what the tariffs are for.
Yeah. Meanwhile, very few rubes say, why didn't you build the wall when you had both the House and the Senate?
No.
Just like we said to Obama, why didn't you get Obamacare done when you had both, right? It really came down to the last minute. But anyway, Larry, I want to take a quick break here because we're talking about Trump. We're talking about some other stuff. But I want to test your knowledge. Right here, I hold in my hand a new segment, ladies and gentlemen, on the Riot.
Okay.
It's called Who Said It? Who Said It? Of course, Phil is going to check very quickly copyright law to see if anybody else has done this gag before, but we'd like to think that at least I came up with this. Okay. Larry, I'm going to give you this test. I'm going to give you a quote from 2 famous historical personalities.
Okay.
And you will tell me who said it. The two contestants this week, who said it? Donald Trump or Benito Mussolini? You got that? You're a paisan, you should know. Now, for the sake of easy, not easy, but you know what I'm saying, is no original Italian if it's a Mussolini quote. Everything's in English, okay? So we'll take that off the table. But Larry, let me give you one. You tell me whether this is Mussolini or Trump. The first one.
Okay.
Democracy is beautiful in theory, but in practice, it is a fallacy. And America will see that someday. TikTok, who said it? Mussolini or Trump?
I'm going to go with Benito on that one. Benito Mussolini.
He is correct.
Okay.
That one was Benito Mussolini. So let's give Larry a round of applause. He got the first one right. We started that.
Okay, producer interjection.
Yes, sure.
I think that was a giveaway because I don't think Trump even knows what fallacy is.
Oh, you just stole my fucking joke. Oh, shit. I was just about to, I was sitting there going, I don't think Trump knows the word fallacy. I was just about to say, good for you, Phil.
All right, there you go. Now,
All right.
the second one.
Go ahead.
Now, mind you, when I say Trump and Mussolini, this isn't just their years in office, Larry. So I'll give you that little clue. It could be from any point in their history.
Okay.
So when Trump was a playboy, it could apply to him.
Yeah, okay.
When Mussolini was a newspaper writer, it might apply for him. So here's number
They're
two.
both jackasses.
Okay, the second one. I have no love for the Jews. But you have to admit, they have influence everywhere. Is that Mussolini or Trump?
I'm going to say the Donald.
The Donald. Larry is wrong. That was Il Duce. And the second part of his quote, as a matter of fact, is, it is better just to leave the Jews alone.
Well, that was Adolf.
All right, so we're getting the hang of this. Okay.
Okay. I'm 1-1. Good.
Okay. Now let's pick another one out. Here we go. Mussolini or Trump? This country is in serious trouble. We cannot claim victory anymore. Who said it? Mussolini or Trump?
I'm going to say Mussolini said that.
Larry says Mussolini. That, in fact, is the Donald.
Oh, is that the Donald?
Yes, that, in fact, was the Donald.
When did he say that?
I actually don't know.
Oh,
But
you're
I have the
okay.
quote, but I don't have the time he said it.
Okay.
But he did say it. All right. Who said it, Mussolini or Trump? Freedom? What's freedom? There's no such thing as absolute freedom. Who said it? Trump or Mussolini?
That sounds like a Mussolini comment.
Yes, that is Mussolini. That is Mussolini. Very good. Okay. Here's another one. Socialism is a fraud. A comedy. A blackmail. Who said that? Trump or Mussolini?
The Donald?
No. That was Benito.
That was Benito.
All right. Larry so far is 2 and 4. 2 and 4. 2 and 3. Okay. Let's see if we can get him up to 500 in this one.
My knowledge of morons is very bad.
Mussolini or Trump?
All right.
Liberty is a duty, not a right. Mussolini or Trump?
Liberty is a duty, not a right. Mussolini.
Correct. That one was Il
okay.
Duce. All right. And the last one for all of you out there.
This is the tiebreaker.
You cannot get rid of me. You'll never get rid of me. You hate me, yet you still love me. Who said that?
Trump.
That, in fact, was Il Duce.
Il Duce again.
Now, we had a lot of fun. Larry, thank you for playing.
Mm-hmm.
But, of course, what this tells us is there's really no difference between Mussolini and Trump.
Yeah.
See, a lot of you liberals make the mistake of calling him Hitler.
Yeah.
Which, of course, we've always said is patently ridiculous. You shouldn't be calling people Hitler unless they really are like Hitler.
Yeah.
But Mussolini and Trump, pretty much identical. As a matter of fact, if you look through their histories, and I was shocked to while I was doing some research for this fun, Mussolini himself started out as a newspaper writer.
Right.
And he came to the conclusion that the news in Italy was fake news. Now, he didn't use the term fake news.
No.
He used whatever the Italian version of, like, bullshit was.
Yeah.
But that's what he referred to the news in his country. And he said for years, he kept criticizing the news. And I think I have another quote here somewhere. Because basically he said, I will rail against the news until the people will only believe me. Because really, that was his plot. He wanted people to stop believing that the news had any credibility and that the only source of truth was Il Duce. And if you think of Trump, what does he do all the time?
Yeah.
Fake news. I'm the one with the truth. Read my Twitter feed. You know, and he's got his stupid kid, Donald Trump Jr., doing the same thing. He's banging Kimberly Guilfoyle, you know, so that's the other news.
That's a win.
But my whole point being is, like, they're almost identical. It's almost scary when I did this.
Oh, yeah.
To see how identical their thought processes are in a lot of situations, Larry. So thank you for playing, by the way.
Okay.
And that was good. But anyway, so now, the other segment as we start to wrap up the show, let's not forget our douchebag of the week. And this is Larry's segment. Did you notice we're doing a lot of segments, Larry?
Yeah.
Trying to go viral on YouTube. So we're doing segments. Right, Phil?
Yeah.
There you go. Phil told me that. I got to do segments, ladies and gentlemen.
So this week,
Douchebag of the week.
this douchebag of the week, we're going to be very provincial.
Yes.
And we're going to stay right here in New York City, where our beloved mayor, Bill de Blasio,
The Blaz.
not his real name. His real name is Wilhelm, whatever the fuck. Recently, he was out of the city.
Yep.
I forget where he was, Iowa, somewhere, putting out feelers. Big Bill wants to
You mean
run-
like Joe Biden?
No,
feelers?
not those feelers.
Oh, okay.
The feelers where you have the audacity to think that you're presidential material.
Yeah.
And, of course, we were just talking about the Democrats. They're going to have more candidates than the Republicans did in 2016. There are more people running than ever. So now Bill de Blasio wants to run for president. This is no doubt he's not going to stay here. I think he's definitely thinking of doing this. Right. And now this is galling because he has done such a horrible job.
Right.
He just recently got in trouble. I mean, there was the night shift thing with all the poor living in like low income housing with rats and all kinds of garbage and just horrible. I mean, his stewardship of this city has been terrible. It's basically been, it's like a miniature of the Green New Deal. Like he's trying to get everybody onto bikes. They're doing the very stupid congestion pricing right now. When you had a few, I mean, obviously, look, anytime you hear about like a cop shooting or something, it's tragic, it's unfortunate. But he had to come right out and say that, because, you know, his wife is black, and the kids obviously look black, they don't look white at all. And he said, I had to have that talk with my son. And yeah, like his entire attitude, like against the police and everything, like what kind of mayor has this guy been? He's lucky that this city has so much money and so much talent, and that people want to come here, and you know it almost runs itself. I mean, it's an incredible economic engine in this city.
We have had a net outflow of people though for something like 3-4 years. Right?
Yeah, but not money.
Not money, but
even
people,
from foreigners, even from people coming and buying buildings, and I can't believe that this guy thinks the mayor is behind him. He thinks he's done a great job. I actually watched. Most people in the city don't watch. I actually watched the debate between all the people who ran for public advocate.
Right.
Now, you might, if you don't live in the city, you might not know this. The public advocate is actually the number 2 person in the city. It's not like a deputy mayor. It doesn't work like president, vice president, governor, lieutenant governor. All those deputy mayors, I mean, that's just whatever. Yeah, the public advocate is actually the number 2. So if the mayor dies or leaves or whatever, this person becomes the mayor. I was watching the debates, and everybody, there was like one Republican, and everybody else was in varying degrees of left-wing kookiness.
Yeah, I saw that.
And like really firebrand, like crazy leftists. But what really struck me the most about it was every one of them went, he's delusional, he's crazy, what does he think he's talking? He's going to run for mayor, for president. He hasn't been much. Actually, one of them said he hasn't been much of a mayor. And they asked him the next day, like, how do you feel about all these people taking shots? He goes, oh, it's politics. And he said something stupid like that to try and brush off the fact that all these fellow leftists kind of bashed him.
Yeah.
And what's really galling to me is, I tell you, I mean, obviously we live in this city. I can't tell you that this guy's done any kind of a job whatsoever. He started out with the oversleeping and missing meetings.
And shitting on the police.
And not showing up at they had the police ceremony. It's almost pro forma that the mayor goes this. He was over in Germany when they had one of the police, swearing in. He was over there, like, just meeting other progressive groups and, like, trying to push his, like, left-wing agenda. He's become like Steve Bannon, who was floating around Europe.
You know what's interesting about de Blasio, too, is, like, I don't know if, the word communist gets tossed around a lot, especially by conservatives, when they try to slander someone, run somebody down. But yeah, the one thing about de Blasio, when someone like Larry or I uses the word communist against him, he's a fucking communist. We'll say it again, and this isn't from me, this is from the New York Times. As a young man, he ran supplies for the Sandinistas. And if you don't know who the Sandinistas were, crack a book or go to Google, right? The Sandinistas were basically what almost brought down Reagan because he was trying to funnel support to the Contras, who were fighting the Sandinistas, who were the communist regime in Nicaragua. So that's where de Blasio cut his teeth. He ran supplies for the fucking communists in Nicaragua. Larry, I know you've seen this. He made a statement last week when someone said, like, where are you going to get the money for all of your programs? Because everything with him is a program. Free pre-K, free K, universal health care, subsidized housing. Like, if there's a giveaway between him, AOC, and Cuomo, they figured it out, okay? Someone asked him, where's the money going to come from all this? He didn't even bother to do the standard Democratic thing like the rich have to pay their fair share, which we hate because no one ever says what fair share is, right? It's just fair share.
Yeah, they don't put any numbers on it.
De Blasio skipped right past that. He doesn't even go with that anymore. He literally said, and he repeated it, there's plenty of money in this city, it's just in the wrong hands. Now think about that. His claim is that the money being in the hands of the people who earned it means that the money is in the wrong hands. Meaning the people who earned it have no right to it in his mind.
Yeah.
There's been cases in this city where there's been complaints against landlords. Like the typical shit that goes on in these, houses. Like there's not enough heat, the water doesn't work, whatever. Yeah. De Blasio's solution. Confiscate the building and give it back to the tenants. Meaning the landlord doesn't own it anymore. And I said to myself, is that legal? Can you do that in this country? Yeah. Like, literally, that's what the fucking Cossacks did in the Soviet Union, right? And the first commies. Yeah. They've done it. Yeah. They use it as a threat. Like, unless you do this, we're just going to take it and give it to all your tenants and go fuck yourself. It's not your building anymore. I don't know if young people understand, really, Larry, to your point of him being a douchebag, how fucking authoritarian and communist this is.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And he also got in trouble with there's some $170 million he gave out in contracts to some slumlords or some other stupid thing. But it's been just a bombardment from like silly things like trying to get the horses around Central Park, get them out of there. They thought they're being mean to the horses, cruelty, and that turned out not to be true. It has to do with every stupid initiative, even to, you can't even cross the street anymore. You got to worry some asshole on a city bike who's going to run you over. And the people on the bikes, let me tell you something. the people on the bikes are more dangerous than anybody in a car I've ever seen in my entire life.
Well, the New York Messengers are legendary.
Yeah, but even the people just right. They always think they have the right of way. They're always trying to get through a red light so they don't have to stop.
They bang on your car at red lights and shit.
Oh yeah. So and this is all stuff that he's encouraged.
Oh, by the way,
and for the finale, he wants to be the president of the United States.
And by the way, you mentioned it in passing about cronyism. Yeah. You know who the biggest crony is his lesbian wife. Now, you may think that I'm being cruel, Larry, by referring to her as his lesbian wife. I am not. I am quoting her. Okay? She herself has said, I used to be a lesbian, then I chose not to be. So, don't take it up with me. Take it up with, what's her name? Charlene, whatever the fuck her name is. Yeah, take it up with her. But anyway, I diverged slightly. She apparently was given close to $1 billion to run some sort of, I believe, mental health initiative in New York City. And guess what? No one can find the money. And no one can find any programs, apparently, that she started. Yeah. It is literally, and I say close to $1 billion. To be exact, I think the number is somewhere between $750 million and $800 million. Like, basically unaccounted for. And de Blasio just sails through this.
Right.
My accountant the other day, because it's tax season, Larry. I went to my accountant, got my taxes, where I get my taxes done, and I sat down and talked with her, and I said, hey, what about if I move from New York City? What's my tax situation? What if I sell some assets, buy some assets? Typical stuff you might talk with your accountant. And she basically told me, she goes, don't worry about it. If you move out of the city, it's, you save on income tax. Because New York City, I don't know if people realize this, we get triple taxed in New York City. There's federal tax, there's New York state tax, and then there's an additional New York City income tax. We get 3 income taxes, Larry. And in New York City, it comes out to roughly 3% of your total income that you end up paying to New York City, not to New York State. That's another bill you got to pay. All right? Some people escape New York City to go to other New York State outliers like Long Island or upstate New York. So they're within commuting range of the city where the jobs are, but they're not in New York City, so they really don't pay that income tax of New York City's, right?
Right.
Well, she told me that her accountant circles are under the impression that de Blasio is going to recommend that the city impose a commuter tax equal to that of the income tax next year. Okay. So even if you got out of New York City, you'd still end up paying the full income tax of New York City. This is regressive taxation. I know they call it progressive. It's actually regressive. You're taxing the successful at a higher rate than those who are sycophants.
And it's all just punitive.
It's just a punishment,
You're moving out of the city, out of our reach.
Yeah.
And the only reason you're doing that is because you don't want to pay your tax or whatever.
Yeah. And so instead of lowering taxes to keep me here.
Right. And to incentivize you to stay in the city, keep your money here, patronize restaurants, business, blah, blah, blah. What we're going to do is we're going to find out, you moved 80 feet that way? Well, guess what? Yeah. Here's a community tax. Fuck you, because communism rules. Yeah.
And by the way, the other thing him and Cuomo have done, Larry mentioned it in passing, congestion pricing, which is going to be new to New York City, which means during something like at least half of the working day, anybody who takes anything that isn't a bicycle into Manhattan has to pay like $12.
Yeah.
Now, where they're going to collect this money, how the fuck they're going to collect this money, I don't know. But that's the plan. They want to collect money. And by the way, what's the first thing that happened as soon as they announced this, Larry? All the lobbying. Uber doesn't want to pay. Truckers don't want to pay.
Livery tax.
Yeah, all taxis aren't going to pay. Right? So as soon as they start carving out, because these are all political favors, right, Larry?
Yeah, sure.
As soon as they start carving this out, where is the brunt of that congestion pricing going to come from?
Just ordinary people,
All right? And if you're in New York City and you don't think you pay enough in taxes because this fucking douchebag of the week or of the century, de Blasio, decides that he's going to... Think about this. It's not just income tax, ladies and gentlemen. Mm-hmm. Like we said, there's federal tax. If you're a New Yorker, you're from Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, Staten Island, Brooklyn, you're paying federal, state, and city income tax. So that's before the money ever hits your pocket. Right. It's gone, right? Then think about this. There's gas tax. There's food service tax. There's a sales tax, right? When I look at my cable bill, literally the first 2 pages of my cable bill are just taxes and usage fees. Have you noticed that, Larry? When you open up your Fios bill, free pitch for Fios, the best cable company, have you noticed that the first 2 pages are like regulatory charges, city tax? Mm-hmm. Go to a hotel in New York City. Why do you think Airbnb has been banned in New York City? Why is that? A free market solution, Larry. Yeah. Because Airbnb, people don't charge taxes. Go to a hotel in New York City, occupancy tax. What the fuck is an occupant? Isn't the whole point of a hotel that somebody occupies the room? That's how they make their money. Why is there a tax on for parking your ass in a hotel room? What's the point of that? Yeah. Right? So when you look at a New Yorker, a typical New Yorker, me and Larry, and we're not rich by any means, right? No. We might be paying conservatively between the income tax, the sales taxes, the service charges, regulatory fees, at least 60 to 70% of our incomes before we ever see it are gone. Yeah. And this is the climate that there's an asshole like old Bill de Blasio here who wants to raise it even more because there's more shit that he wants done.
And he wants to bring all this to all 50 states.
To all 50 states, exactly. So anyway, douchebag of the week, a good choice, I have to say. All right, we're winding up the ride here. I hope you enjoyed the show, ladies and gentlemen. Some new segments, as we were urged by Phil, the producer, to do. We're going to continue those. Please, any ideas or suggestions for the show, hit me up on Twitter at that Riot Show. We're also, I promised earlier, we're still working on it, trying to get some guests to join the show for short interview segments. So we're working on that, Larry. But, like I said, I'm done talking. Larry looks like he's choking on something.
No, I'm okay now.
No, you're okay?
But before it was tough.
No invisible cock?
Yeah, well, you know what? I started thinking of de Blasio.
Sorry. Anyway, all right. So, until next week when we do this again, this has been Big Fat John.
And Judo Larry.
Peace, bitches.
Herman King Fried Chicken Joint. Godfather Pizza. I guess he thinks Andrew Yang owns a Chinese restaurant. Big fat dumbass.